Doctors often dismiss it as simply old age. They shrug and say that slowing blood flow and decreased overall performance are common after 60. However, just 3 months later, the patient ends up in the emergency room with symptoms resembling a heart attack. But the cause wasn't the heart, it was blocked blood vessels. Few realize that poor circulation affects not only the limbs and chest, but can also silently destroy intimate life, self-confidence, and connections with loved ones. For decades, specialists have been helping men regain control over their health, energy, and ability to be intimate. Working with thousands of men over 60 has convincingly proven that age isn't the main problem. The real issue is what's being kept quiet and how simple changes can drastically alter the situation. Most people are used to using baking soda for cooking or cleaning. However, when applied in a specific way, it has a powerful effect on blood flow, artery elasticity, and nitric oxide levels. Yes, a common product that's probably already in your kitchen could be the key to feeling young, energized, and restoring intimacy in the bedroom. There's no need to fear complex medical terms. We'll explain in detail how it works, why it's effective, and how to use it safely. It's important to remember that improper use can lead to unwanted consequences, especially in old age. So watch to the end to learn about the method that's quietly changing the lives of men over 60 across the country. The silent decline in blood flow, which begins around the age of 50, affects more than just energy levels. It gradually erodes strength, mood, and the ability to connect intimately with a loved one. It all starts small, with cold hands and feet, a feeling of shortness of breath, or a decreased desire for intimacy. But over time, these symptoms accumulate, and ignoring the problem can lead to serious consequences. One of the most common problems men over 60 face is poor circulation. The doctor recalls a case with a patient named Walter, who was 68 years old, retired, and had been married for over 40 years. Surprisingly, his reason for seeing the doctor wasn't heart problems or even difficulties in the intimate sphere. As Walter himself admitted, "Doctor, I've stopped feeling like myself." Even in the summer heat, his hands remained icy. He started falling asleep earlier and earlier, and although he didn't talk about it directly at first, you could sense that he was burdened by some heavy, inexplicable feeling of loss. In a more candid conversation, it turned out that intimacy had become rare, awkward, and sometimes painful, but not so much physically as emotionally. Walter felt like he was gradually disappearing, ceasing to be who he once was. This condition, the doctor notes, is much more common than people think. In fact, it's one of the most widespread and yet underestimated problems that men over 60 face. And the root of this problem lies in circulation. As we age, the inner walls of blood vessels begin to lose their elasticity and harden. Arteries no longer stretch and contract as easily. Blood doesn't circulate as freely, and the small vessels responsible for maintaining warmth, energy, and sensitivity begin to narrow, like old pipes. This process doesn't happen suddenly. It creeps in gradually, imperceptibly sapping vitality, until a person begins to attribute everything to normal aging. But it's not just about age. The reason lies in the deterioration of blood circulation, which affects not only physical health, it affects a man's self-perception, his role as a husband and an individual. This can lead to frustration, alienation from life, and doubts that the best years are already behind. The doctor observed how men lose confidence, doubt their value, and even avoid showing affection. Not because they don't care, but because their bodies no longer respond as they used to, and no one has explained the reason for this to them. However, the doctor is quick to assure that this decline is not inevitable. There are ways to support blood circulation, restore the elasticity of blood vessels, and rekindle the spark that many consider to be extinguished forever. And, paradoxically, one of the simplest remedies he recommends is ordinary baking soda, which is sure to be found in every kitchen. But it's not about the way it's usually used, as indicated on the package. Let me tell you how one simple household item, when skillfully applied, can reverse the processes that are constricting your life, and why the next few minutes could forever change your perception of your own body. I'll never forget Charles's moment of despair in my office. At 72, he had always been the epitome of dignity and elegance. A caring family man, an attentive neighbor, he even took in a stray cat in his yard. But on that day, a broken man sat before me, not physically but morally. Leaning forward and lowering his voice, he said, "Doctor, I no longer feel like a man." His blood tests were normal, his heart was ticking like clockwork, but I understood the problem. His circulation wasn't providing enough blood flow to vital organs, the ones responsible for confidence, intimacy, and connection with his beloved wife. Circulation problems were undermining not only his health, but also his very identity. When blood flow slows down, it's like a light dimming in a house, one bulb going out after another. First, energy disappears, then sleep suffers, and then the ability to be intimate. And it's not just about physiology. It hits self-esteem hard. A man begins to doubt himself, feels alienated from his partner, even when they are close. This slow decline cannot be stopped with a pill or dismissed as old age. It's essential to understand what's happening inside the body. From a medical point of view, it's all about endothelial function, the condition of the inner lining of blood vessels. When it's damaged, the production of nitric oxide decreases, without which the vessels cannot dilate, and blood cannot flow freely. And the smallest vessels, responsible for arousal, memory, the sensation of warmth and vitality, are the first to suffer. What starts as mild fatigue or decreased libido can develop into serious problems, early signs of vascular disease, and increased risk of stroke. And even erectile dysfunction that doesn't respond to medication. Unfortunately, most men don't realize this until the situation is out of control. But there's good news. The body has the ability to self-repair. Blood vessels can regain their elasticity, and nitric oxide levels can be restored naturally, without synthetic drugs with frightening side effects. There's an effective and accessible method that can initiate the body's recovery, based on the use of a common product likely familiar to everyone since childhood. Many elderly patients who were offered this approach were surprised to note the return of lost sensations. We are talking about baking soda, whose capabilities, when used correctly, extend far beyond cooking, supporting the healing processes from within. Baking soda, or sodium bicarbonate, is a simple but often underestimated solution. I recall the story of Harold, a 67-year-old retired math teacher, who, after trying numerous remedies, from dietary supplements to prescription drugs and dubious infomercial devices, was desperate. "Nothing helps," he lamented. "I feel like I'm chasing ghosts." He was exhausted not only physically but also mentally. Then, he was asked an unexpected question. "Do you have baking soda in your kitchen?" Harold was puzzled, believing it was only needed for baking. Indeed, most people perceive baking soda as an ingredient for culinary items or a means to eliminate odors in the refrigerator. However, few realize its potential benefits for the body, especially for men facing circulation problems that negatively affect their energy, confidence, and ability to live a full life. Baking soda is not a miracle powder, but a simple compound that, when used correctly, can support optimal blood flow and oxygen delivery, which is especially important with age. Over time, the human body tends to become more acidic due to diet, stress, and decreased kidney function. This accumulation of acid can lead to narrowing of blood vessels and impaired oxygen exchange, factors that are highly undesirable with pre-existing circulation problems. A small amount of baking soda dissolved in water and taken at a specific time helps neutralize excess acidity, gently balancing the body's pH level and promoting freer blood flow. Improved circulation, in turn, can lead to increased vitality, a surge of strength and energy, and the restoration of sensitivity, even in areas where hope seemed lost. The author has observed men like Harold, under careful guidance, begin to use baking soda and notice positive changes. They have more energy in the mornings, stiffness disappears, and a spark of interest returns to their eyes. It is emphasized that this is not a universal solution and not a substitute for a healthy lifestyle, but for many, it becomes a starting point for change. The body, having received the necessary support, begins to respond, often exceeding expectations. However, the author cautions that thoughtless and hasty application can be harmful. Before using baking soda, it is necessary to carefully study all the nuances. The author intends to describe in detail the safe methods of application and possible dangers in order to avoid worsening the condition in an attempt to improve it. The author shares their experience, noting that they have seen both positive and negative consequences of using baking soda. One example is the case of a 70-year-old patient named Dennis, who, being active and playing golf, read on the internet about the benefits of baking soda for blood circulation. He began taking a teaspoon of baking soda in the morning and evening, hoping for a quick result. Within a week, he developed bloating, his blood pressure rose, and he ended up in the emergency room with a rapid heartbeat and confusion. His kidneys, weakened over the years, could not cope with the overload. The author emphasizes that baking soda itself is not dangerous, but it becomes risky when people treat it as a panacea without understanding its effect. This is not just a vitamin, but a powerful compound that affects the body's internal chemistry, pH levels, fluid balance, and sodium levels. For older people, especially those taking blood pressure medications or having kidney problems, this balance is particularly fragile. In adulthood, the body works like a complex mechanism, and excess sodium, even from a natural source, can disrupt heart rhythm, cause swelling, or raise blood pressure to dangerous levels. The author has repeatedly encountered patients who, in an effort to regain their vitality, did not realize the potential risks of self-treatment. The optimistic news is that the potential dangers of using baking soda are completely eliminated with a competent approach. And it's not just about reducing the dosage. It is important to consider the timing of intake, ensure adequate hydration, understand the interaction with medications being taken, and carefully monitor your body's reactions. It is necessary to ask the right questions, avoid rushing to expect results, and interact with your body, not resist it. The author often reminds their patients that the naturalness of a product does not guarantee its absolute safety in any quantity. Water, for example, is a natural substance, but excessive and rapid consumption can be harmful. Baking soda can support the healing process, but only with careful, respectful use, preferably under the supervision of a specialist. If the reader is still reading, then they are probably not looking for a short-term solution, but an effective way that will help them restore well-being without harming their health. Next, the author promises to describe in detail the method that they use in their practice, including the safe time of intake, the optimal dosage, and one important nuance that is crucial for successful application. When it comes to baking soda, patients often ask the same question: how to use it correctly? This is a perfectly legitimate question, since, as already noted, proper use plays a key role in maintaining health and preventing unwanted consequences. For most healthy adults over 60 years of age, it is recommended to start with a minimum dose, 1 to 4 teaspoons of baking soda, dissolved in a glass of water, taken on an empty stomach. The ideal time is in the morning, before meals, but not before bedtime, and not several times a day. Once is enough. Despite the seemingly insignificant dose, it plays an important role in maintaining the body's internal balance. The author recalls a case with one of their patients, 74-year-old Ray, who complained of a decline in strength in the afternoon and problems with blood circulation, which made even short walks difficult. They started with a simple protocol: 1 to 4 teaspoons of baking soda every morning on an empty stomach, washed down with a glass of water. After 3 weeks, Ray shared his impressions. "I don't know what's going on, doctor, but I feel more cheerful, more energetic, and my hands don't freeze anymore." Many forget about the importance of hydrating the body. Sodium bicarbonate is most effective when the body receives enough fluids. It is recommended to drink water throughout the day, without waiting for thirst. Abundant drinking improves blood circulation, facilitates oxygen transport, and optimizes the functioning of organs, including those responsible for the intimate sphere. Do not consider the use of baking soda as an isolated measure. It is important to perceive this as part of a comprehensive approach to caring for your body. When taking medications, especially for the treatment of hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, or kidney diseases, it is necessary to consult a doctor. This is not a manifestation of fear, but a sign of respect for your body, which has been exposed to various influences for many years. Taking care of your health should be approached with the same diligence as maintaining a classic car, requiring meticulous engine checks. Most men don't need a miracle. They need a small victory that instills hope and confidence. One positive change can spark further improvements, and incorporating baking soda into your routine could be that initial step. To illustrate, consider the story of Frank, a 76-year-old widower. Frank was a man of few words who only sought help when absolutely necessary. Upon learning about baking soda from a mutual acquaintance, he decided to try it, not expecting a miracle cure, but simply hoping to feel more alive, energetic, and open to new relationships. Frank began with the previously described method: a small dose of baking soda in the morning, plenty of water, and careful monitoring of his body's response. Consistency was key. He didn't just take the mixture once, he respected the process and allowed his body time to adjust. Over several weeks, the changes were subtle but consistent: improved circulation in his hands, better sleep, and increased focus during conversations. One day, with a slight smile, Frank admitted that he never thought he'd feel close to anyone again, but he did. While this may seem elementary, its significance shouldn't be underestimated. The insidious effects of impaired circulation, which subtly affects the lives of millions of men over 60, were discussed. This problem, like a shadow, steals vitality, diminishes intimacy, and creates a feeling that the best years are behind them. The conversation explored how ordinary baking soda, when used correctly, can restore balance to the body, support blood flow, and bring life back to areas where numbness and silence have long reigned. The emphasis was on providing the body with the necessary support, showing care, patience, and respect for its needs, rather than seeking an instant fix. If you're feeling tired, disconnected, or even slightly hopeless due to the passage of time, it's important to realize that all is not lost. The capacity for healing still lies within. Your body hasn't given up. It's simply waiting to be heard. Perhaps this small change can be the starting point. One glass, one healthy habit, one conscious decision to take your health, energy, and confidence seriously. Not someday, but today. Because life isn't over, you still matter, and there are many moments ahead worth experiencing to the full.